Welcome, everyone. We've just started our live webinar here for the Ask Me Anything About Graduate Studies at the University of Waterloo. We'll just wait a minute here to let everyone get logged in successfully, and then we will get started. All right, well, we will get started now. So welcome to our Ask Me Anything about graduate studies at the University of Waterloo. My name is Sarah Howard. I am the Manager of Postdoctoral Affairs and Programming Development here at Graduate Studies and Postdoctoral Affairs at the University of Waterloo. And I'm really pleased to be your host and moderator for today's Ask Me Anything with the GSA, Julian Surdy, and GSPA. We have Jeff Casello with us. So before we get started, I do want to take a moment to provide a territorial acknowledgement. Here at the University of Waterloo, we acknowledge that much of our work takes place on the traditional territory of the Neutral, Anishinaabe, and Haudenosaunee peoples. And our main campus is situated on the Haldeman Tract, the land granted to the Six Nations that includes 6 miles on each side of the Grand River. And this is the land where I live and work. Our active work towards reconciliation at the University of Waterloo takes place across our campuses through research, learning, teaching, and community building, and is centralized within our Office of Indigenous Relations. And if you'd like to learn anything else about the work that they do, I'd encourage you to visit their website. So I will now turn it over to my colleagues who are joining us, who will be answering all of the questions today. So I'll turn it to Jeff first, and then to Julian to introduce themselves.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name is Jeff Casello, and I am the Associate Vice President, Graduate Studies and Postdoctoral Affairs. I am also a professor in the School of Planning and in the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering. The kind of work that I do as a researcher involves transportation systems, so I'm jointly appointed between the two disciplines. It's really important, I think, for us to be able to make ourselves available to our graduate students and hear directly from them, get a chance to answer any questions that you might have on your mind, and really give some direction as to the areas that GSPA and GSA are working collaboratively on to try and make this the very best place that you can be to be a graduate student in Canada and amongst the top destinations in the world. So really eager to have a conversation with this morning and look forward to the questions and answers.
Hi, everybody. My name is Julian Surdy, and I am the current president of the GSA, so the Graduate Student Association. So we are the representative body for all grad students at the University of Waterloo. I'm currently finishing up my master's in the Department of Kinesiology, so I'm doing exercise physiology research. And like Jeff mentioned, it's really important that we are having these discussions and being clear with all of the resources that we have to offer. So we are working together with the GSPA because it is a joint effort, and we want to make sure that students are supported from all sides at UW. I'll pass it back off to Sarah.
Great, thanks to Julian and Jeff, who will be in the hot seat answering all of your questions shortly. But I will first start off with some housekeeping items just to let you know how today's session is going to run. So as you can see from the slide, I'm just doing the brief overview and some housekeeping items, and then we will move into a brief presentation by Jeff and Julian that will cover some of the kind of key elements that are being discussed in graduate studies here at the University of Waterloo. We will then spend most of our time this morning on the Q&A. I will alternate between any live questions that come in and the questions that our participants, you were able to submit in advance when you registered. If you would like to submit any questions for Jeff or Julian to answer, the Q&A is open. You can submit questions at any time through that Q&A button that should be at the bottom of your screen. Questions can be submitted anonymously as well. Additionally, you will see that today's session is being recorded, but I want you to know that even if you don't submit your question anonymously, I will not share any identifying information when I ask the question, so you won't be included in the recording in any way. And after today's session, if there are questions and answers that you want to review again, we will be posting this recording on GSPA's YouTube channel. I'll share a link for that in the chat in case you do want to go and review it after the live session as well. And as we go through, if there are any kind of helpful links or resources that Julian or Jeff point to, I will do my best to share links and resources in the chat throughout this session as well. Okay, so I will turn it back over to Julian now to talk about a few items for discussion in graduate studies.
Great. So getting to the bulk of today. So there are a couple key topics that Jeff and I, when we sat down, we discussed also with our council, just to bring some topics to the forefront that we wanted to discuss. So I'm actually going to start off at the bottom with respect to off-campus housing or campus housing. Housing in general, because there's a variety of, right now it's very clear, a lot of students are struggling, not only in the region of Waterloo, but Kitchener, Cambridge, all across Ontario. The price of rent has been drastically increasing along with inflation. So it is our responsibility as the GSA and the GSPA and the university to be supporting students for both on-campus and off-campus housing, right? We do have a limited number of housing opportunities or housing beds on campus. So we work with the university and on-campus housing, as well as the city of Waterloo, to help improve or help the housing crisis, both in the short term and in the long term. So we will be we have tons of resources on the GSA website. We do have a housing coordinator that will is well equipped with all these questions, and we do work with the city to bring in a lawyer that we've been doing recently with respect to trying to get some assistance in the short term, because I know there have also been concerns with landlords and some of the housing rights, tenants' rights that students have. So we are really trying to amp up the support systems that we have for housing, because everybody needs a place to stay, and it is a huge barrier right now. So we are trying to remove that barrier to make it easier and less stressful for students to study at UW. Also, one of the biggest policy changes that has occurred in the past year has been Policy 30. So previously, Policy 30 for the employment of graduate students and for TAs, so teaching assistants, was revamped and lengthened just to solidify or be more clear with the expectations for both students and supervisors. So on both sides, sorry, not supervisors, students and the faculties or the departments that are overseeing these TAships, and just clarifying the expectations and the process should there be any issues. So this new policy revamp is really important, because it helps to clarify for students when there are any issues and how to resolve those issues. Cool. I will pass it off to Jeff to speak on the other couple points.
Yeah, thanks, Julian. Just to follow up on a couple other points that are listed there on your screen. Over the last few years, well, when I came into my role, I've been in my position now for 7 years. And when I came into my role, we had something that we called the 10-hour rule. And the 10-hour rule was a maximum number of hours that a student could work on campus while they were a full-time graduate student. And increasingly, we heard from students that this felt like an unnecessary limit on their ability to be able to financially support themselves. And so over the last couple of years, we've been working with the university, with the faculties, with graduate students to revise these rules. And I have to say that this is a province-wide change, because all universities had adopted the 10-hour rule. So we are all now stepping away from that. And what we're doing now is we are essentially saying that if you are in good academic standing and you have the approval of your supervisor, there is now a 20-hour limit on the number of hours that you can work for the University of Waterloo. So if you are working as a TA for 10 hours a week, you could get a job on the campus doing something more as an RA, for example, for 10 additional hours with the approval of your supervisor. Now, people often ask us, what about working off campus? And the short answer is that the university has no way of knowing what you're doing when you are working off campus, nor are we particularly interested. What we are interested in is you being able to advance successfully academically. So as long as you are making good academic progress, the university essentially is, I won't say disinterested, but will not be monitoring carefully what you are doing in an off-campus setting. But we do have the upper bound of 20 hours per week while you are working here on campus. And we think that that's just a reasonable amount of time that would allow you to continue to progress academically and still have an opportunity to support yourself financially. So these are changes that we've made in the last year or so. I'll just jump down to the graduate work integrated learning because I think it's on the same theme of graduate students and not simply employment for the sake of supporting your graduate studies, but also employment for the opportunity to create many good outcomes for you while you are a graduate student. So I'll just start by saying that the University of Waterloo, of course, is remarkably well known globally for its enormous undergraduate cooperative education program. And the goals of our undergraduate co-op program are to make sure that our students have extensive professional experience when they leave, that they integrate their professional experience with their academics in ways that make sense. And it's been really a goal for me, as long as, again, I've been in my role, and for the university to broaden that strength of the cooperative education to graduate studies, but in a way that makes sense for graduate studies. So we are thinking about a whole suite of graduate work integrated learning opportunities for our students. And that could be for our course-based master's students, for example, a very traditional co-op kind of placement where you go and you are involved in production work in a firm that is an external partner, and you do that for 40 hours a week and you get paid for that position. There are, of course, other models that make sense for graduate students. We have a long practice of having our graduate students engage in internships or practica, depending on the discipline. And of course, we also have our students engaged in lots of research that involves external partners. So where there is an external partner and where you are working with that external partner, satisfying the requirements of the external partner and conducting your academics, this is what we are building out into grad work integrated learning. And this is certainly a strategic goal of the university, and there have been lots of central resources dedicated to those opportunities for our students. So we're really excited about bringing this opportunity to our graduate students in a more complete way. Of course, we already have some GradWell programs that are operating on campus, but this is an opportunity to make sure that every graduate student who wishes to do so has an opportunity to be in a grad work integrated learning. The last point on the slide is we have been running, or we had run in this winter term, a really novel course on the wicked problems of climate change. And I want to just share with you how that ran and what the motivation was for that course. What we did was we brought together 6 PhD candidates from across the university in 6 different faculties, all of whom were looking at climate change from a different perspective. We then immersed them in some academic training to help them get ready to deliver the course, and also to make sure that the course was going to be a seamless, well-designed, cohesive kind of experience for our undergraduate students who are enrolled in the course. So the students got an opportunity to come together, meet each other, build out the curriculum in the first term, that was in the fall of 2022, and then deliver the course collectively in this winter of 2023. And that was a really amazing opportunity. The students found it really impactful. So why do we do that? Well, this course has, I call it the win-win-win. There's just no shortage of wins associated with this course. It gives us an opportunity to bring together graduate students who share an interest in climate change, but do so from very different disciplinary perspectives. So it brings us a community of scholars who are thinking about climate change. It also allows us to provide some financial support to our graduate students in delivering the teaching mission of the university. It also gets our graduate students some training to be really good instructors or course designers and so on. So this really has been an amazing experiment. It was part of the teaching and learning incubator that we are building on the campus. So it was really just an outstanding opportunity. So I just will leave you with a message to say that the university is really thinking about interdisciplinarity. So making sure that our graduate students have a chance to think about the things that they think about, whether it's climate change or artificial intelligence or aging or health or those kinds of things, with people from diverse backgrounds, disciplinary backgrounds. So in the climate change course, we can have someone who thinks about policy with a software engineer, with someone who thinks about the hard physical sciences of climate change. And that is really an advancement that the university is very pleased to see happen for our graduate students. So that's a brief overview of what's been going on campus. I know Julian talked about Policy 30. We're really pleased at the outcome of that policy. We think it gives much greater clarity and much more a solid foundation for our graduate TAs. And we're also understanding that the students are struggling with their housing and taking steps to try and improve that. So happy to take your questions, look forward to the conversation. And I think with that, I'll turn it back to you, Sarah.
Great. Thank you, Jeff and Julian, for those overviews. I have put the links for all of those items that are on the slide in the chat in case you would like to look into any of them in more detail. All right, so we will move into our Q&A part of this session now, where we will spend kind of the rest of our time until we wrap up. So I will stop sharing my screen here now and move into the questions. Just as a reminder, if you do have any questions, you can submit them through that Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen at any time. Questions can be submitted anonymously if you would like. And even if you include your name with your question, I will not read out your names, so you will not be included in the recording in any way. All right. So I know you talked about some of those updated guidelines to funding and just some TA updates. We do have some questions around those kind of areas. So I'll start with one of our pre-submitted questions here. It says currently some students are self-funded in Masters of Engineering courses, and they're not always able to take on TA-ships. The student has acknowledged that there are increasing financial burdens on students with, we're obviously aware of the rising cost of housing, and there also have been tuition increases for international students in those programs. So this student is wondering if there's anything that the university is doing to lessen these burdens, whether, we can bring back TA opportunities for these students, more scholarships, reduced tuitions, and if so, when they could expect to see these changes implemented. Jeff, I see you've unmuted, so I'll turn it to you, and then Julian, if you have anything else, please feel free to follow up.
Sure. Thanks, Sarah. And thanks for the question. We certainly understand the difficulties of being in a course-based program where you don't have a guaranteed source of funding. Let me just explain a couple things and then offer up some thoughts. When we make an offer to our incoming research graduate students, we often include in that offer of admission a guaranteed funding, both at the PhD and at the master's level for our research students. And oftentimes that includes teaching assistantship. And so when we are assigning TAs to courses, the way in which we do that now is we make sure that obviously the first goal is to make sure that the TA has the skills and knowledge that they need to in order to be a good TA for the course. That's the first criterion. The second criterion that we use is whether or not there is a financial commitment that we've already made to one of our graduate students. And in those cases, of course, those students take precedence because we have made that commitment to our graduate student to provide that financial support. And so that's normally the way things go. And now in some programs, there are more graduate students than there are TA opportunities. So there's real competition for those TA spots. In other graduate programs, there are more TA opportunities than there are graduate students. And so we're actually scrambling to find enough graduate students to serve as TAs. I think you mentioned this was an MEng student, Sarah, and I know that in the MEng program, it's the former case where there are more students who want TAs than there are TA opportunities. So there is a competition for those TAs. And again, the selection criteria are as I described them. So it can be difficult for MEng students to get TA ships. We understand that, but I just encourage our colleagues, our students who feel like they are the competencies and the skill sets to support those courses to continue to apply. I can tell you that you will get an honest and fair assessment of your candidacy. That's something that is guaranteed now in Policy 30. We are aware that tuition has increased for our Masters of Engineering program. And let me tell you how we arrived at those decisions on what the tuition ought to be. The university, this is going to be a little bit of a long story, so I'll try to do it quickly, but the university looks at a couple of things. The first is really the value of the program, and then what our competitors are offering relative to the program that we offer here at the University of Waterloo. And over the last 3 or 4 or 5 years, we've really recognized that we feel like we were undervaluing our Masters of Engineering program, particularly relative to our peers. Our peers were charging much more for their programs. And so we tried to come through over the last 4 or 5 years, a kind of a normalization to where we got to a place where we felt like the tuition reflected the value of the program. I think now we're sort of at that point, and I don't think that there's much more upward pressure on the tuition charges for our MEng programs particularly, but for all of our course-based programs at the university. So I think that we are now it's sort of equilibrium. So I know that there has been this change, but I don't expect more changes going forward. I just want to end with one thing to say that if you are an international graduate student and you find yourself in unforeseen financial trouble, we do have something called the contingency bursary in our office. So suppose you've come to Waterloo, you're going along fine academically, and unfortunately there's an illness in your family and that interferes with your ability to support yourself. Let us know about that. We can evaluate your financial situation. We can often help with providing support for those students who had this unforeseen interruption in their ability to fund themselves. So I know that's not an exact answer to say that we can guarantee you a TA-ship or that there are more coming, but I can tell you that we are aware of the financial situation. I think our tuition has stabilized now. And if you do find yourself in trouble, we do have the contingency bursary that we'd be happy to talk to you about.
Thanks, Jeff. Julian, do you have anything that you'd like to add on this topic?
Yeah, just very quickly, because I think Jeff touched on the majority of the points, but from the student side, in terms of course-based master's programs, we highly encourage students to apply to the GSA because we do have employment opportunities that can assist with these funding your education. So I always encourage students to apply for coordinator or VP positions. We have a variety of positions even on our board as board chair or our council speaker. So these are other ways that you can fund your education, and also being involved with the GSA. If there are any issues like Jeff mentioned that we can assist you with and advocate on your behalf, we can work with you to come to a solution with the GSPA, because again, there can be a lot of unforeseen circumstances, and we want to ensure that the students are having the best experience possible. So in that manner of communication, we want to ensure that if there are any issues with funding, if you find that there potentially are numerous students in a particular program, perhaps in your department, that are experiencing a certain type of issue, it is great to bring it up to the GSA so that we can work on the issue collaboratively.
Great, thanks to you both. And in the chat there, you'll see I've posted a link to the Graduate Student Contingency Bursary if you'd like to learn more about that, as well as the GSA's Get Involved page. That is where their employment opportunities are listed if you're interested in any of those. Hey, so Jeff, you had talked about the Wicked Problems of Climate Change course. So we've had a question come in about this. One of our attendees is asking, will this course continue, and will opportunities be offered to a new set of graduate students to deliver the course? The idea being that it can continually evolve and offer new perspectives.
Yeah, thanks for that question. The short answer is I certainly hope so, and I think so. We haven't yet done the full debrief with the faculties and with all of those who are involved. A lot of the training work was done by the Center for Teaching Excellence, and that was pretty resource intensive for them. And so as we think about this course and its manifestation going forward, I think we need to dedicate the resources. We did this time as a pilot, but we expect to be able to repeat it. So I think, again, the short answer is 90% sure that this will continue. And the way I'll just be clear about, if you are interested, just watch the GSPA's communication channels, because we will probably decide on a new theme for the upcoming year, and we will put a call out for instructors probably over the summer. So if you are interested in helping to deliver a course like that, certainly just keep your eye out on the GSPA, both their communications, their social channels, as well as the emails that you receive from us.
Great, thanks, Jeff. And yes, that is the main way that we communicate with students is through our graduate student e-news that gets delivered right to your inbox every week. So I really encourage you to open that up and take a look through. It has a lot of information centralized in there. And I know that the GSA also has an e-news that contains a lot of really great information. I believe, Julian, that's sent out twice or every 2 weeks now, or twice per month. If you can just give an update on that, it would be great as well.
Yeah, so the GSA newsletter comes out twice a month. So that is just all the best place to learn about what the GSA has to offer. But again, for the GSPA, that the weekly newsletter has all really important details specifically for the academic side, and it is packed with information. So even though it might seem long, I highly encourage everybody to take a read, because there are a lot of opportunities that could be missed if you are not taking the chance to take in what the university is offering.
Great, thank you. Okay, our next question here is around housing. The student is asking, does UW offer housing that students can apply for? Specifically, are there residencies for students with families? So Julian, maybe I'll ask you to take that first in terms of what resources and supports are available specifically to students looking for housing that's family friendly. And then Jeff, if there's anything to follow up, I'll ask you to do that.
Yeah, so the university reserves a certain number of beds or apartments for graduate students, and this is specifically at CLV North, if I'm correct. And this is it is open to all graduate students, but there is a limited number of beds, so it is difficult to guarantee for all students. It is open to both master's and PhD. There are units that are available for families, and so this is highly encouraged for people who are coming to study at the university and have families, because it is very convenient to be on campus. But one of the biggest issues that we have been hearing from students is the limited capacity. It is based on a lottery, and students will oftentimes there are more students that are not admitted to the residency or to getting an apartment on campus, and that's just due to our capacity. So we are working with the university to see what other options we have. But again, those once all those units and once those beds have been filled, students will be directed to off-campus housing. And so that is really where the GSA and the GSPA has been trying to amp up our supports in finding appropriate housing or affordable housing for all students, especially with families, because it is oftentimes, if you're coming for a PhD, if you are an international student, it is a big shift. And if you are bringing your family with you, that is, you're not only worrying about yourself, but you have dependents as well. And so it is our responsibility to make sure that you do feel supported in that manner. So we are ensuring that we are providing as many resources as possible. Like I mentioned, we do have a housing coordinator who has been working very hard with getting a good sense of what the grad students, what our needs are. So two things that we've been working on, I did mention it before, but we're working with the city of Waterloo. So once, say you apply to on-campus residence and you are not able to get a spot, and you're trying to look for a new place, and maybe you are discussing with a landlord or looking for other rental opportunities, we do have a bi-weekly drop-in session with a local lawyer who has been really great with assisting with some of those nitty-gritty, I guess, essentially legal aspects that people are not might not be aware about. So that is really important. It has personally helped me. It has helped other staff members as well. But even if we can help one student, it is great to discuss with this lawyer so that you can get some ideas about what other opportunities off campus we have to offer. And on the other side, the Town and Gown, which is a committee for it is essentially all of the universities and colleges. So Waterloo, Laurier, and Conestoga. It is a committee that works with the city of Waterloo to address our needs, the needs of the students. And we administered a housing survey that was administered to all schools. It is now closed, but we are looking to gather more information, and we will be analyzing the data to figure out what kind of housing students need. So with respect to the families, maybe we need to be making more more housing for families, because as grad students, we have a variety of students that come in. So with that data, we will be able to guide the way we are advocating, working with the university to get the housing needs met for our students. So long story short, there is residence or residence units available for families and for grad students, but there is a limited number available. So it's really important that you're doing, if you are not permitted or not granted one of those units, it is important to look off campus, and we do have a variety of supports to help you in your search.
Sarah, can I just add a couple things there? I think Julian hit it exactly on the head. You know, I think as we think about our graduate students who are coming to Waterloo, there is sort of I think a hierarchy of support that we need to provide to them in terms of finding housing. Of course, everybody wants affordable housing and everybody wants secure housing. Those are, I think, unassailable principles that we start with. But from there, I think if you are one of our undergraduate students who are staying on for graduate school, I think you already know the circumstances, you know the area, you feel very comfortable here. You've been living in Waterloo for 4 years or 4.5 years, you're already comfortable. So I think the amount of support we need to provide for those students is much less. If you're coming from another Ontario university, again, you're probably familiar with Ontario rules, you're familiar with the rental scenarios, those kinds of things, and it's a fairly easy transition. If you're coming from within Canada, but out of province, maybe we need to provide a little bit more support. When we start thinking about international students, particularly those who are coming to Canada for the very first time, I think we as an institution have an obligation to those students to really provide the support in terms of the security that Julian was talking about, making sure that you have legal protection as you come to the university in your housing, that you're choosing a safe location, those kinds of things. And we have an obligation, I think, to make sure that we are advocating on behalf of keeping prices in a range that the new students can afford. And I think the question was originally about international or about students with families, and it doesn't matter if you're international or domestic in that case. There really is an importance that we support those students, particularly international students who are coming with families, because they are amongst the most vulnerable. And we know that there are some graduate student families who are coming with multi-generation families. So it's not just mom and dad and a child, it can be mom, dad, parents, and a child who are coming to Waterloo to study. And we as an institution have an obligation to support those students at the level that they need their support. So I'm grateful to the GSA for the work that they've been doing to provide support. I know our housing team on both our on-campus and off-campus housing have heard the message very loudly from our students about the need for extended support. I do want to reinforce the message that Julian gave you that we are working with this Town and Gown Committee. This is our pathway to advocacy for through the local governments to ensure safety. And maybe I'll just add one more point to say that that this housing pressure is not just a Waterloo phenomenon. At Laurier and at Conestoga College, there's been a massive influx, particularly at Conestoga College, of international students coming to the region that have put really high supply demand, very high demand pressure on our housing situation that we are all now collectively trying to work through. So I hope that's helpful. Just know that the university is aware and that we're working on these kinds of issues to make things better for you as a student.
Great, thanks very much, Jeff and Julian, for all of those details around housing. I know it's an important issue. All right, so we have a question about some of the updates for policy 30. That's around TA employment. So this student has said that it seems that one of the changes with policy 30 is that TAs are now being evaluated by the instructor, and this evaluation will inform instructors of TA performance. They're saying on one hand, this can be a really positive thing. It gives the TAs an opportunity to get feedback, which is positive, but they're saying there's also that potential to create a greater power imbalance with having that instructor feedback. They're asking if there's any potential to build in greater equity by allowing a similar evaluation process for TAs to evaluate the instructor as well, to provide TAs considering, a course with information on working with that instructor as well. Jeff, I'll let you go, and then Julian, if you have any follow-ups.
Sure, yeah, thanks. It's really important, right, that we are working collaboratively. And I'll just say that as we wrote that policy, and I just want to reinforce the message that policy was written jointly with leadership from the GSA, as well as me and other academic leaders. And so this really was a collaborative effort between students and the university to come to a good outcome. Certainly, I think it's great when a TA has a terrific experience and the TA and the instructor work really well together. And at the end of the term, the instructor reinforces how positive the TA contributed to the course. That's, of course, the desired outcome. Can it be that there is a difference of opinion where the TA thought they did a very good job and the instructor had some questions about the TA's performance? There certainly can be. And I think in that case, what we as an institution would do would be to look also at the student course perception surveys. And so in there is often feedback about TAs. We can also query the students directly about the TA's performance. And that's an opportunity for the TAs to have evidence of the quality of the work that they've done. Now, if there is a case where a TA experiences a negative teaching with the instructor, my message to the TA in that case is that we have now, through policy, dictated that there is a single point of contact for those TAs, and that is what we call the TA administrator. That's going to be a different person depending on what unit you're in. If you're in the Faculty of Mathematics, it could be the Math Undergraduate Office. If you're in engineering, it's most likely going to be your grad chair in your department. And so that person is ready to and expecting to receive feedback from you as a TA on the performance of the instructor. And so if the instructor were difficult to work for, was not respectful of your time, was not a strong communicator, this is the kind of feedback that you can certainly provide, and it can be done in a way that won't put you at risk as a student. This is what we need to have happen as an institution to ensure that these relationships continue to be positive and constructive. And so I don't, when we wrote Policy 30, we didn't get into a formal process of TA evaluating instructors. Logistically, that would have been really difficult, I think, for us to get into place, but certainly the expectation is that there is a pathway through the TA administrator for students to provide that feedback. And maybe I'll just say that, you know, our hope is that our students feel empowered that in week 2 of the term, if there's already some friction arising between you and the instructor, that you have that conversation with the instructor. And it turns out to be a productive and a resolving kind of conversation. You should certainly feel empowered to do that. And if you have the conversation with the instructor and it's not positive, then don't be afraid to invite the TA administrator who will also be part of that conversation. Ultimately, what we want for you is an experience that allows you to grow, allows you to develop the skills in the course, allows you to help us contribute in terms of the teaching. But at the end of the day, we want it to be a positive experience for you. And if it's not being that, then there are people whose job it is to intervene.
Julian, I wonder if there's anything else you'd like to add.
Yeah, not too much to add, but I just want to echo what Jeff said in terms of the empowerment. I think that one thing that we want to ensure that TAs and grad students know that it is your working environment, and so we highly encourage students, if there is an issue, to bring it forward. So yes, it might not be explicitly written in the policy right now, but as per the other aspects of the policy, it is encouraged to have those discussions with not only an instructor, but the TA administrator. And so we highly encourage students to be doing that. And again, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but it's really important to be reaching out to the GSA, because we have our LIBRA coordinator, our advising coordinator, who knows these policies like the back of their hand. And so we want to be optimistic and hope that everything will work out perfectly and there will not be any problems, but there will be some bumps in the road. And when they occur, because they will happen, please reach out to the GSA, because we will be able to guide you through the policy and work with you and the university to come to a solution. Because I know that with respect to TA-ships, it has been one of the bigger topics in the past few years. So we want to make sure that students' voices are being heard, and the GSA is able to assist with that.
There, one more point, if I can, sorry, just to say that, and this probably should have been on our opening slide, Sarah, in retrospect, but one thing that Julian and I and a number of students before Julian in his role and undergraduate colleagues have been working on is the creation of an ombuds office for the University of Waterloo. And the ombuds office is purposefully structured to be at arm's length to the university. They are not the university. They don't report to anyone on the university track. They actually report to our Board of Governors, which is at arm's length to all of the academics. And so if you find yourself in a difficult situation and you don't know to whom to turn, the incoming ombuds office that we hope, well, that we expect to have in place by this fall, will be an unbiased, unaffiliated place where you can turn for guidance as a student. And so this is a place where you can anonymously ask any kind of question you wish about anyone at the university and get very good, well-informed feedback from someone, again, who doesn't report to anyone in the university administration. So just wanted to make students aware that the ombuds office is coming, and we feel like this is, Julian, I'll welcome your comments here, but I feel like this is something that students have been asking the university for some time. And I'm really pleased to see it to come to fruition. I think it's an important arm's length resource that students will find real value in.
Oh yes, 5 years in the making. I've been working on the Ombuds office since I was an undergrad. So it's been a long time coming, and we are excited to see it come to fruition.
Great. So again, stay tuned for more information on that. It's there are lots of There's always things happening on campus, so we encourage you to stay connected with the communications that are sent to you so that you're aware of when these changes take place. So this next question, I think, it fits around some of the same themes in terms of the power dynamics that may be at play for graduate students. And this one specifically around supervision. So the question is asking, what is the university doing to put frameworks in place to protect graduate students from inappropriate supervisor conduct? You know, whether that be potentially verbal abuse or racist behavior, especially considering there is that unequal power dynamic between students and supervisors. Um, Jeff, do you want to take this one first, and then over to Julian? Or...
I can share the university's perspective, but maybe I'll invite Julian to respond first to this, because I think that the GSA is a really important resource here. And Julian, maybe you can just share about the pathways that you often receive these kinds of concerns and how you deliver them to us as an administration. I think that'd be useful for students to understand.
Yes, yeah. So Jeff and I have worked collaboratively on this because this has been one of the common issues that we get. So again, our advising coordinator, through our contact us form, these forms come straight to our advising coordinator, who will be, like I mentioned, is well versed in the policies and is able to guide you through any of these processes and trying to resolve it as soon as possible without it going through any formal processes. But these are methods that students can take to learn the process and learn any small conflict resolution and mediation techniques that we can assist with in terms of supervisor-student relationships before it has to go to the official bodies. But Jeff and I have worked at one of our committees, the Grad Student Relations Committee. We are looking to revamp the supervisory task force, which is essentially a group where we will have equal representation from students and the university and from each of the faculties to have a direct line of communication with respect to what are some common issues that students are facing with supervisors. Again, all of the supervisors receive training in order to become a supervisor. However, there can be obstacles that get in the way. Supervisors are often very busy with their research, with teaching, with their personal lives as well. And there can be issues that arise, and we want to first figure out what those issues are, whether it is required for more training. Maybe there is areas that are being pulled in different directions, so the supervisor is not giving enough attention to the student, or in this particular case, there could be serious accusations of sexual, verbal, physical harassment, and this is unacceptable. We need to make sure that that we are having these discussions with the university and having these discussions from the GSA perspective and bringing it up through our council and from our students is really important, because we want to work with the GSPA to figure out the best way to resolve these issues. So through our sessions, our advising coordinator has been, we have a lot of data on which faculties have the most cases, for example, and which types of issues have been coming up. So this actually prompted, when we were discussing, or when policy 30 was being revised, a lot of these sessions were kind of reinforcing the need for the policy 30 revision, because we found that students were having issues with their TA-ships, and that kind of helped the policy review process. But in terms of the supervisor relationship, kind of similar to the TA, if there are any issues with TA-ships and your relationship with your instructor, we really want to encourage students to feel empowered to call out any issues that are occurring, and that is the first step, because once you do that, you can reach out to the GSA and we can support you as much as possible. Because if you wait too late, if you wait 3 years into your PhD, it is difficult for us to assist in that process. And we just want to make sure that students know that there are resources and supports for the immediate action, because those can not only affect your academic success, but also your physical and mental well-being. And to me, that is priority. We're all here to learn. We're all here to do to advance our academic careers and our professional careers, but not at the expense of your physical or mental well-being. So in the short term, making sure that you are reaching out and using some of the resources that we have. We will do everything in our power to sit down. I have personally gotten involved with some cases because they just needed additional support. And then the long term, we are working with Jeff and the university, the associate deans, I believe, with the faculties, the respective faculties, to get that straight, the more direct line of communication, because we have found that certain faculties have had a higher number of incidences, I would say, than others. So really trying to pinpoint the issues and then working on the solutions, right? It's not just indicating that there are certain issues with a specific supervisor, but it could be due to lack of training. So then it's further developing those trainings and trying to ensure that issues like these don't occur in the future.
Jeff, I see your.
I've got a bunch to add. So this is of course critical. There's no question that that your supervisory relationship is probably the single most important thing that influences the quality of your graduate student experience. And we in Graduate Studies and Postdoctoral Affairs have been creating a vision for graduate studies. And our vision really is that this is the best place in Canada to be a graduate student and amongst the top destinations in the world. That's our vision. And that can't happen unless we have high quality, respectful, and effective graduate student supervision. So let me just say a few things. First, in order to be a sole supervisor for a graduate student, you have to have, for PhD students, I should say, you have to have approved doctoral dissertation supervisory status. That's AD status. And the way in which you get that is you either co-supervise with colleagues or you go through a set of training modules that our team, along with the Center for Teaching Excellence, provide. And it's our office that oversees whether or not someone has AD status. And when someone is found to be supervising in ways that aren't consistent with the principles and the goals of AD status, we have in the past revoked AD status, which requires that then a faculty member goes back through the training process and becomes more aware and more consistent with the best practices around supervisory training, around supervisory practices. So this is the way that the university thinks about that. I think that one of the things that Julian said, I just want to echo, is to say that if you are having a challenge with your supervisor, again, we hope that you feel empowered. We want you to feel empowered to have that conversation with your supervisor. If that's not an effective resolution to the problem, again, your associate chair, your grad chair in your home unit, that's a faculty member who is appointed by the chair of the department to look after graduate students and graduate studies. They're your next point of contact. If you don't feel comfortable talking to them, then you can talk to your associate dean graduate studies. This is sort of the hierarchy of people who are responsible for looking after you and your supervisory relationship. If those don't prove fruitful, you can certainly come to Graduate Studies and Postdoctoral Affairs, and we will help you as well. We'll certainly be a point of contact. Graduate Student Association, again, can help you with this. And we know that if you are seen to be having friction with your supervisor, it can put your supervisory relationship at risk. And we know how important that is, not just during your studies, but professionally. You know, if you're a PhD candidate and you're at the end of your career with us, and you don't want to lose that connection with your supervisor, because they're going to be important for letters of reference, for professional networking, for what comes next for you. So the GSA and GSPA and all of the people I've already talked about can be pathways for you to resolve those issues with your supervisor in a way that's not going to put at risk your supervisory relationship. So I want to make that point explicitly clear. Let me just be more direct on issues associated with policy violations by a supervisor. If you feel like there is racism in your group, if you feel like there is misogyny in your group, if you feel like there is a lack of well, if there's just not an attention to creating a positive space and a positive environment for you to be successful academically, I point your attention to two policies. The first is Policy 33. Policy 33 is the ethical behavior on campus. It governs the kind of behavior that if you were concerned about racism, you could certainly pursue that policy, pursue the resolution of that situation through Policy 33. I think Sarah will link to Policy 33 in the chat for us. The other policy, if things become sexual in nature, if there is sexual violence, sexual harassment, then I encourage you to review Policy 42. And I can say unequivocally that the university has a zero tolerance policy for this kind of behavior. If you make your colleagues, me, your associate chair, the Graduate Student Association, if you make anyone on the hierarchy that I've talked about already aware, then this is what happens. The university will meet with you, will understand your concerns. We won't take any actions until you direct us to, but with your oversight, we can attempt to resolve this situation in a way that is respectful of you as the graduate student, and of course, being respectful of all of us on the university campus. So I just want to be clear that there are very clear pathways for the resolution of these kinds of issues, and we are eager to create the right positive environment for you to be successful academically, personally, and particularly with your well-being.
Thank you, Jeff and Julian. Okay, so I'm going to move on to kind of two similar questions we have around funding. One, we have an international student who says they just received their offer of admission for a master's program in public health sciences. So first, congratulations. We're excited to have you joining us. They've indicated they were awarded minimum funding, but it isn't enough to cover tuition and living expenses. So they're wondering what scholarships they can apply for. And another student in a similar situation, but part-time master's, is asking as well, what kind of financial assistance is there available for them in these situations? So Jeff, if you can respond to that.
Sure. So a couple things. First, for our full-time colleague who's joining us, again, welcome and thanks for your interest in Waterloo. I think that if you're in a situation where financially the support that we're providing for you is not going to make it possible for you to be a graduate student with us at the University of Waterloo, you can certainly explore alternative scholarships. We have a database that we use that allows you to search through to find things for which you might qualify for additional funding. But I also think that you might make your situation aware to the program that's admitted you. And so if you have been admitted, Sarah, did you tell us which program it was that the student had been?
That was Masters of Public Health Sciences.
Okay. Yeah, so certainly I think that if you're in a situation where, the finances, the reality of the situation is that the funding package that you receive is just not enough for you to come to Waterloo, you can make us aware of that. I can't guarantee that the university has the capacity to increase your funding, but oftentimes our default package is the minimum package. But if there is a really talented student who is eager to be at Waterloo and the supervisor is eager to have you here, we sometimes can work collaboratively to find some more support for you to make graduate studies financially possible. So two suggestions there. One is to search the database that you can find potentially some other ways to support you. Think about what the professional opportunities might be for you while you are a student with us to see if there's a way that you can augment your income while you're here. And the third suggestion is to talk directly with the unit that's admitted you to see if there are additional funds that might be available either from the unit or from the supervisor to increase your level of support so it becomes financially viable for you to come to the University of Waterloo. For our part-time colleagues, this is difficult because with part-time students, we have very few awards for which you are eligible. And I understand the motivation to be part-time. You may be doing other things. You may only be able to afford part-time tuition. But really, the university structure is such that we typically don't fund our part-time students. So I know that's a hard message, but that's the reality of how the university operates with regard to part-time students.
Thanks, Jeff. Julian, is there anything you wish to add around funding or supports?
No, I think Jeff hit all the key points there. Okay,
great. So I do have a second question from this kind of new incoming international student. I'll direct to you, Julian. They're saying that they would love to connect with other international students, especially in their same program, but, of course, any students across the university, and they'd appreciate help. I know the GSA has lots of ways for students to connect. So I'm wondering if you could share what some of those options are.
Great. So I always plug this because we always want more followers on Instagram, but really important to be looking at our social media and our website because that is our main form of communication. Again, you're going to be getting a lot of emails from us and the GSPA and the university. So if you do have an Instagram account or a Twitter account, please check it out there because we have all of our service updates and our event updates for the if you're starting in the spring or in the fall, we will have all this information posted on our social media for international students in particular. Again, we have a coordinator dedicated for international students. So our coordinator that has been working, she's been there for about almost 2 years now. Shufeng, she is amazing and has all the great resources. So if you have any immediate questions, again, check out our contact us form on our website, and you'll be able to, it'll go right into her inbox and she'll be able to respond to any questions. Again, this can range from even finding housing as an international student. It can also be for visas. It can also be for connecting with other students. There are a lot of opportunities. So I'll highlight a couple that we offer. The big one is our Discord channel. So we have a huge Discord channel that is for international students, and it is a great forum for you to pop any questions, meet anybody in your program. And so that is a great opportunity to get some really quick responses. Again, Shufeng is really good at responding and answering those questions really quickly. So we have that channel, and then we also do monthly events for international students. So we do our international student mixers that are monthly events, and they are usually hosted at the grad house or in our grad lounge, so in grad student space, that allows you to meet other students. They may not be in your program, but they will be international students, and it is great to just get to meet new people. Me personally, I know we are a little bit past COVID, but it's been really nice to be doing those in-person events and just meeting new people. It's been a great opportunity. So I highly encourage any international students who are looking to meet friends to check out those events. One final thing is for, you did mention it was the Masters of Public Health, correct? Yeah, so that you are in luck. We do have a departmental GSA for your department. So for those of you who don't know, we have the GSA, which is the overarching organization for all graduate students, but we also have specific departmental GSAs, so departmental based on your department for each of your departments. Sorry, for certain departments. Not all departments have this type of group. If you're interested in starting one, please reach out to the GSA. We're more than happy to do so. But there are a list of departmental GSAs, and so that will be the best place for you to meet people in your program. So this will include the Masters of Public Health, as well as all the professional programs in the Department of Public Health. So that is a great way to. They host again monthly events, and it is catered just to your department. We have one in the Department of Kinesiology, and it's honestly it's really cool because yes, it is great to meet people in other faculties, but sometimes you want to connect on a more personal level, perhaps with the type of research that you do. So it is a great opportunity to do so there. Just making sure I didn't forget anything. I guess aside from the international student focused events, we do have a variety of events. And so it's really important to check out not only the GSA, but our grad house. Not me plugging the GSA now, but in terms of meeting new people, oftentimes that you will attend events and conversations spark out of nowhere. And more often than not, you will meet really, really fun people, and you will potentially meet friends that you will be with or you will know for the rest of your program. So I highly encourage to come out to all of our social events as well, because even though we advocate for students, the social and the community building for me is just as important, because we want to make sure that you feel at home when you come to UW.
Julian, that graduate house, it's the farmhouse, right, in the center of campus. I should visit that someday. Yes. Oh,
I don't believe I've seen you there at all, Jeff. Not once.
I'm joking, because the graduate house, for those of you who have had a chance to go there, it really is the landing place for so many people. You'll see undergraduates studying, you'll see graduate students doing all kinds of things. You'll see faculty members, staff. It is really the gathering point on the campus, and it's a wonderful place. Really just come out, have a coffee, have an iced tea, have something to eat, have a stronger beverage if that's what you're inclined to enjoy. You might find me or Julian there, and we could talk some more about anything that's on your mind. So happy to have that chat.
Thanks to you both. Those are lots of great resources. And I was popping lots of links in the chat. So if you'd like to learn more about any of the GSA services or contacts, they are there linked in the chat for you. Great. So I have we're getting some follow-up questions for some things we've discussed already. So Jeff, there's a follow-up question about the Wicked Problems course. A student is wondering if it would be considered, so if they chose to participate, they were selected as an instructor for this course, would it be considered as an alternative to a TA-ship for those funded through a departmental DDI? And I'm sorry, I'm not quite familiar with that acronym, but I hope you are.
I am, yeah. This is, I suspect that this is an environment student who's asking the question, because in environment, they have the Dean's Doctoral Initiative, which provides funding for students at the PhD level. And yes, I think that let me just back up and talk about the fundamentals of funding at Waterloo. Again, if you are admitted to a program that provides funding, when we give you that offer letter, we will be explicit about what your support will be for the duration of your program. And so if you are coming to us as part of a DDI or any PhD program, we'll tell you that you will get at least this amount of money. And oftentimes we'll tell you the source of that money, whether it's a TA-ship or from your supervisor and so on. And so this would be an opportunity, I think, for you to be supported in the terms, both when you are prepping the course and then delivering the course. Whether or not that would be a full replacement for your DDI, or if it would just be a supplement to, you would have to think through that with the faculty and with your supervisor. But yeah, it certainly is an opportunity for financial support for students. I have to say, my colleagues who have heard me talk about this know how excited I am about these jointly taught courses. It's just a terrific opportunity to bring students together. As I was describing it earlier, I think I called it a win-win-win-win. I could go on with the wins, but it really is an outstanding opportunity, and we're eager to see our students get engaged.
Great, thank you. Okay, another follow-up question, probably for you, Jeff. So you had mentioned that there are kind of some departments or areas where sometimes there are more students seeking TAs than there are TA-ship positions. So a student is wondering if there's opportunity for graduate students in these departments to defer a TA opportunity without losing funding, especially during key milestones. If they're in a term where they're really focused on their comprehensive exam or defense, for example, is there opportunity for that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I know, I'll use an example that I'm familiar with in the Faculty of Arts. There is, for example, some terms where you're asked to TA, some terms where you're given awards, and certainly we want to work with you. We don't want to put you in a position where you are dedicating time and energy to things other than preparing for your milestones. Certainly the defense is incredibly important, your comprehensive exam, or your qualifying exam, if that's what your program has. So my advice is two things. One is talk to your supervisor first and foremost. They're the person who can help schedule those things and coordinate those things. Now, can it be that that there isn't additional funding, and so TA-ships are the way in which you are going to be funded? Yeah, that can be an outcome. Even in that case, if you have something that's coming up, you might talk to the instructor and say, can I help you out more earlier so that I have a couple of week window where I'm able to work exclusively on my comprehensive exam because it is this term? And Policy 30 contemplates that and explicitly encourages those conversations between TAs and instructors. So talk to your supervisor about the possibility of shifting the TA to another term. If that's not possible, talk to the instructor with whom you're working while you're TAing about opening up some time in the middle of the term so you can concentrate on the things that are important to you.
Great, thanks, Jeff. Okay, so I have another follow-up question here around the supervisory issues. So the student is saying, like, it's one thing to want students to feel empowered, as you both discussed, but they're saying the reality is that some students with that power dynamic may not feel like they're protected. They're wondering if either GSPA or GSA is working with other student services such as counseling or equity to help inform kind of other staff on campus about kind of the range of supervisory and instructor relationship issues. So people across campus understand what those dynamics would be like, especially where there may be some trauma involved. Jeff, I'll turn that to you first, and then Julian, if you have any follow-ups.
Sure, I'll keep my response relatively brief. The short answer is that we are advocating with every partner partner group on the university campus with counseling services, with the equity office, with the faculties, particularly to think about the behavior and the oversight of supervisory relationships. We know that this is critical. We know it's very, very important. But I want to point out one other person to whom our students might wish to communicate. And her name is Marlee Spafford. And Marlee is the Provost Special Advisor on Student Experience at the University of Waterloo. And Sarah, maybe you can link through to that webpage for the university. Off the Provost page, there is a Student Experience page, and I think Marlee's contact information is there. Marlee is she's from our School of Optometry, but she's been around the university for some time. She was an associate dean, undergraduate studies, and she was handpicked by the provost to lead us forward on student experience. And so Marlee has been encouraging us to include trauma-informed decision-making and trauma-informed actions throughout all the work that we do. So I just want to assure students that I don't know how to be as direct as I'd like to be, just to say that we know unequivocally the struggles that you face. We know unequivocally the challenges that our students are facing today, and the university is increasingly better prepared to handle those things. Is it perfect? By no means. Are we continuing to work forward? Absolutely. So Marlee is a new resource, but I'm sure she'd be really pleased to hear from anyone. There's also the Sexual Violence Prevention Coordinator, who is Amanda Cook. Amanda is a person to whom you might speak also about any kind of trauma that you may have experienced as a student. And again, I'll just remind our students that even if you reach out to our colleagues, you maintain agency over what happens next. So don't be hesitant to reach out, because no one is going to act without your consent. So sorry, that was I didn't mean to be that long, Sarah, but it's an important question. So I hope that's useful.
Yeah, and from the student perspective, I just want to highlight. So I worked with Marlee Spafford at my undergrad, and she is a lovely human being. So I highly encourage students to reach out to her, because she is just amazing in all senses. With respect to working with other groups on campus, specifically with counseling services and campus wellness, we have monthly termly meetings in which we are going back and forth and discussing the issues that students are currently facing, and trying to inform or drive the area of growth for campus wellness and counseling services. But they do in turn help us with some of these bigger issues, right? We're not going to be doing case by case resolution, but if there are cases that are being brought forward again and again, similar topics, then we do consult with other groups. We do, and in terms of our of the advising coordinator and how the GSA can assist, I can understand the point or the position that students can be put in, and I'm specifically talking about individuals who have experienced trauma, or individuals who are an international student, because both of those has a very unique power dynamic, specifically with international students, the very real fear that they could be removed from the program and their visas can be taken away. And that is experiences that we have heard from students. And so again, I understand that it can be very, very scary to take the first step, but I want to reinforce that the best way to do so is to have students, or have a voice that can work with you. And so really working with the GSA and speaking with our advising coordinator, even just to have an initial point of contact, even if nothing comes out of it, and it's just a space where you can talk about your issue and provide some resources, I do think that is the best starting point, because again, there is a clear difference between the student and the supervisor, but that doesn't impede any conflict resolution, and that might make it difficult to initially or confront your supervisor or confront any issues that you're experiencing in your department, but that doesn't mean that the GSA and student voices are undervalued. So really important to really lean on your support systems, and the GSA being one of the major ones, and we will work with other groups accordingly to ensure that your issue will be resolved.
Okay, thank you so much. So I have a few follow-up questions now for Julian, specifically around student connection and community building. So the first one here, we have a student who's aware that in the past the GSA offered graduate student conversation circles. And then they're wondering if there's opportunities for GSA to support to continue these services, or something like a coffee house conversation, or any kind of opportunities where graduate students can have a safe space to share about their experiences with others from across campus, so different faculties and disciplines.
Yeah, so I haven't heard of the GSA doing that, but I've only been involved with the GSA for about a year. But I think that is a great opportunity. I know that I assume that is probably in response to the discussion or the question about international student relationship building. I think that's a great idea. I will definitely bring that back to my team because I did not think of that in the past, and so I can definitely see where that can be furthered in terms of even just having safe spaces for students who would like to share those experiences, whether it is faculty specific or if it is interdisciplinary. And doing that maybe on a virtual platform would be a great opportunity to allow students to, if they do want to remain anonymous, if they do want to not meet face to face, because it can be a little more difficult, then those discussions can happen on a virtual platform. We're always looking to expand the services we have to offer, so I will definitely take that back to the team and work on it.
Great, thanks, Julian.
Could I just add really quick, Sarah, just to say that if this comes to fruition, Julian, let's talk about how we support that. Certainly, I want to stay arm's length. I want the conversation to be without any university administration. But if GSPA can help facilitate in any way, maybe even throw a few bucks to buy some coffee for the colleagues, we'd be happy to talk about that.
Great, thanks to you both. I also have noted in the chat, I am aware that through counseling services, they have run a graduate specific community and conversation circle. This has been going on for a couple of years now, I believe. Their dates on the website, it looks like the winter term sessions have concluded now, but I'd encourage you to check out the webpage I listed in the chat as we move into the spring term. I know they have run it on a termly basis for quite some time, so I'm hopeful that there will be some spring dates up there in the next couple of weeks for you. So that's something to stay tuned to. It's on a drop-in basis. You can attend. You don't have to attend all of the sessions each term. You can just go as you're able and interested. Okay. There was one more follow-up question for Julian. We have a student who's saying that they are going to be joining a fully online program. So they're wondering, specifically as someone studying remotely, how can they get connected into the graduate community?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I think that, to be completely honest, when we were in COVID, it was solely virtual. And now that we have shifted almost exclusively to in-person events or in-person activities, because there is value in that in-person activity, but we do need to recognize that there are online programs that are fully online and remotely, so people can be studying from anywhere in the world. So we currently, aside from the Discord channel, we do not have any explicit services or events catered to, I guess, to a virtual platform specifically for those online programs. But I'm very interested in furthering that, because again, to be honest, did not think of that, but it is something that I think is very important. So I'd be more than happy to bring that back to my team and work on ways of including that. So the one way, were those discussion circles, but again, potentially around orientation, when we're trying to meet new people, we can offer virtual events or slightly altered versions of our in-person event on a virtual platform to ensure that we are catering to online programs, because again, we do represent all grad students, so we want to make sure that you are feeling a part of our community.
Great, Julie. Okay. So I have another question here around TA positions and also RAs. So this question is, are students able to directly apply for RA or TA-ships at the department level without having to go through the faculty first? And Jeff, I'll ask if you can respond to that.
Yeah, so it depends on which faculty you're in. Again, there are some faculties that will coordinate the TA opportunities at the faculty level. I think the Faculty of Mathematics does that through the Math Undergraduate Office is how they list them. The other faculties, typically the TA opportunities are listed at the departmental level. And again, one of the requirements under the new Policy 30 is that there is a list of TA opportunities that are provided in each term. Now, RAs are different. If you want to work with a faculty member on a project that is not related to your thesis or to your research work, or if you're in a course-based program, you want to serve as an RA, normally those things happen sort of organically, that a supervisor will be doing some work, will know of a student who has the skill set that they need, and will bring them on for a term or for a project for a subset of the term to work on those things. So there's not normally a listing of kind of RA opportunities. Now, it can be that a faculty member might send a message to all grad students in the program saying, I need somebody to help me with this. These are the skill sets I need you to have, and that can be the way. But for TAs, yes, some are at the faculty level, depending on which faculty you're in. Most of them are at the unit level. And if you're looking for RA-ships, opportunities to work directly with faculty supervisors, those things normally emerge on a one-to-one basis.
Great, thank you, Jeff. Okay, I have a question here from a fourth-year PhD student who's indicating that they need to extend their study permit soon, and they have some questions around this process and what's best to do. Jeff, I know you can't share advice on this as you're not an immigration expert, but I'm wondering if you can share about what resources are available on campus to support our international students who have questions about visa or immigration.
Yeah, whenever I get a question about immigration, as Sarah said, I don't give advice because I don't want to give wrong advice, and I'm not a professional, and it's really important that you get this information from a professional. So in our Student Success Office, there are immigration specialists who do provide that advice. There are several, but Boone Koo is the person to whom I always go. Boone knows all the answers, and she's really available. Now, the one thing that I can give advice on is timing. Don't wait till the last minute to try to arrange the renewal of your visa. The sooner you get in touch with our immigration specialist, the more options you're going to have, and the more relaxed the process will be to renewing. So don't be afraid to reach out early, and I'm sure you'll get good guidance from our team.
Great, thank you, Jeff. I have posted a link in the chat for the immigration consulting. You can book appointments with them or send kind of questions through a form to receive kind of written responses. So I would encourage you, as Jeff said, to reach out to them as soon as possible so that you can manage all of those visa requirements. Okay, so for Julian, I have just a short question here, asking for the link for the GSA Discord group. I'm not sure if that's available on your website, or if you send that to me, I'll be happy to post it in the chat for the group here.
Yes, I will get that link for you right away.
Awesome, thank you, Julian. Okay, so a question for you, Jeff, around RA and work opportunities. So question here, can grad students apply to RA or part-time positions posted at various institutions? And similarly, can these positions with the university serve to fulfill the minimum basic funding, especially if the position relates to the student's research?
So if we admit you, Sarah, into our programs, we take on the responsibility of funding you. So even if you were able to find a great RA-ship at Laurier, we would still provide funding in that case. That would be off-campus work. Now, if it turns out that you're in a joint program with Laurier, okay, that's different. Or if your supervisor directs you to Laurier and you're working collaboratively with a supervisor there, that might be a little bit different situation. But the short answer is that if you find an opportunity to engage in scholarship or engage in research related to your thesis anywhere, anywhere locally, or even something that you're able to do remotely, we encourage that. I think anything that will help build your skill set and will allow you to continue to do your research is something that we're really pleased to see you get involved with. So don't hesitate. But as always, talk with your supervisor and see if there is an opportunity, see if there's anything that gives any pause to the supervisor. And maybe I'll just say one other thing here, Sarah, it's not exactly the question, but I keep talking about your supervisor, but I want our course-based students to know that there is someone who is responsible for looking after them as well. And that is either the grad chair in their home unit, or many of our course-based programs have what we call a program director. That is a faculty member who is responsible for looking after those course-based students. So when I say supervisor, I'm talking about supervisor for our research students, but I'm talking about the program director or the grad chair for our course-based students.
Thanks, Jeff. So for that person who asked about the link to the GSA Discord, that is in the chat now. And I just see there was a follow-up clarification to that last question, Jeff. They were actually specifically referring to the research institutes and research centers on campus when working at those. So something like the UW Climate Institute. Can you share some information, how students can get involved in those and if that would be related to their minimum funding then?
Yeah, great. Okay, thanks. That makes a bit more sense than the previous. So yes, for sure. Our institutes and centers, maybe I'll just spend 1 minute, and I know we're getting near to time, Sarah, but I'll just spend 1 minute explaining why we have institutes and centers. Because in the same way that I talked about bringing graduate students together who have different disciplinary expertise but are studying the same theme, that's what our institutes and centers are intended to do. So if you're interested in water, whether you're a policy person, an economist, if you're a social scientist, if you're a physical scientist, if you're an engineer, our Water Institute is intended to bring together all of those scholars who are working on water-related issues. The same is true with our Climate Change Institute. The same is true for some of the smaller centers and institutes like WATCAR, for example. So if you find opportunities to work with a faculty member that is in a center or an institute in an area related to your thematic research area, but not immediately in your discipline, we strongly encourage that. Again, it's intended to build interdisciplinary expertise and give opportunities for students. So don't hesitate to scan around on the center and institute web pages. They're often advertising, looking for graduate students with certain skill sets. I think it's a really good place for you to make better connections across the campus, but still continue your research work.
Great, thank you, Jeff. Okay, as Jeff noted, we are getting near to the end of our time here, and we are starting to kind of wrap up the questions. So if you have any final questions, if there's any clarification for questions that were already answered that you'd like, please submit those now. We will start wrapping up soon. So the next question here goes back to funding for master's students. A student is asking specifically if there are any fully funded scholarships for master's program. I'm not sure what department or area this is in. Jeff, I'm wondering if you have any input on that. I'll also post a link again to the scholarships and award funding database as well for students to look there.
Right. So I'll just say this, Sarah. So if you apply to us to be a PhD student, we have a guaranteed minimum funding level for our PhD students. That is a university requirement. For our master's students, I think 4 or 5 of the 6 faculties have funding guarantees for our master's students. And so if you are coming to be a research master's student in, for example, the Faculty of Engineering, there is a minimum amount that you will receive. I think it's $18,000 in financial support. So that holds true. So my advice is if you have a question about funding availability for a research program, you can contact the unit directly to ask that question. Or maybe, Sarah, you can drop the general inquiries email address for our admissions team. I think it's gradapply@uwaterloo.ca. I think that's the right one where people can ask questions about programs. And what we'll do is we'll filter that along to the program that you're asking about. Again, for course-based programs, it's unusual to provide funding for our course-based programs. So that would be, as I said, not the norm. And if you're coming to us as part of a course-based program, our expectation would be that we wouldn't provide funding for those students except in very unique cases.
Okay, thanks. I'm just putting that grad apply email in the chat quick. All right, so I have one further clarification question, and then we will move to kind of final comments and wrap up. Again, just around those research institutes, to clarify, would a student applying for the research institute still be required to do a TA-ship in addition to work at the research institute if they have minimum basic funding as a TA?
So no one is required to be a TA ever. I think that's always at the discretion of the student to be a TA. Now, it's a good decision. The student has to make a good decision there. So if you find yourself with a research opportunity in the institute and center, and that provides you funding that relieves the need for you to be a TA, that's certainly possible. So that is a conversation, again, with your supervisor, with your home unit. But, again, I encourage you to try and find new ways to gain some funding, to gain greater access to other researchers on campus, be part of the campus community, meet other like-minded folks. So I strongly encourage you to reach out to the institutes and centers to see what's available.
All right, so we will start wrapping up now. So I think I just want to turn it over to both you, Jeff, and Julian, for any final remarks or things you'd like to kind of leave off this session today with. So Julian, I'll turn it to you first, and then Jeff for final comments.
Yeah, I think the overall gist, or the in summary for today, we really want to highlight the supports that the university has, both on the student side for the student leadership at the GSA, but also the GSPA. We are here for students and we're here to support you. So it's really important that you take the time to find the resources and look at our sites to see what we have to offer, and also share them with your friends. I've interacted with a variety of students that just weren't aware of what we have to offer, and it can literally change their lives. Again, I'm going back to the housing, the housing drop-ins, and we have helped not one but two students from getting evicted from their house illegally. So things like that we can help, but in order to help, we may need to make sure that you guys are aware of the services and reach out. So I really encourage everyone to do a little bit of homework to make sure that you know what we have to offer, because we are here for the students and we want to make sure that you have the best experience. I'll pass it off to Jeff.
Thanks, Julian, and thanks for doing this with us. We really appreciate it. I guess I'll just wrap things up today to, again, thank everyone for participating. I guess I want to leave you with some philosophy to say that beyond the answers to your questions today, what I want you to, what I hope you will take away from today is that collectively, Julian, me, our graduate studies teams, the faculties, all of our faculty members, we're here because you're here. We want this to be a fantastic place for you to be a graduate student. We really believe in the vision that we talked about earlier, and we are really committed to making this the best place in Canada to be a graduate student and amongst the best places in the world. And if you ever have any concerns about the way things are going, if you want to offer any constructive feedback to the way we manage our graduate studies programs, if you just want to say hello, my door and my email address is always open. And I mean that sincerely. Let's keep this conversation going. Let's keep the dialogue happening. And I'm really happy to hear from any of you about the things that you think are going well and the things that need our attention. So thanks for coming. Thanks for the questions. I hope today has been useful. And really, I do hope that we can continue the conversation.
Great. Thank you so much, Jeff and Julian, for responding to so many questions. And thank you, all of our attendees, for being so engaged and asking all of your questions. As Jeff said, there is always opportunity to continue the conversation outside of these types of forums. So you will see on the slides there, we have the contact information for Jeff, that's the GSPA AVP email, as well as Julian, the GSA president email. I'm also popping those in the chats. I will also acknowledge that we did have a couple of questions that were pre-submitted that were very specific admissions questions that we didn't have time to get to. And some of those are best addressed by our admissions team because they can get into your specific situation with you as well. So if you have questions about admissions or about records at the university, those contact emails are also listed there. So you can connect with our office and get all of the best information that's specific to you and your situation. I've also in the chat listed a link to our graduate program coordinators. Our graduate coordinators are fantastic and a wealth of knowledge about your program, how things run in your department specifically, and they are a wonderful point of contact for you, even if maybe you don't know who to reach out to. They are a great place to start. So I posted a link in the chat as well to where you can find the contact information for your specific department coordinator if you don't already know who they are and aren't already connected with them. So thank you so much for joining us. Please, if you have additional questions, there's additional things that you'd like to ask about or learn more about, please reach out. We're very happy to continue those conversations. And as I mentioned at the beginning, the recording of this session will be posted on our YouTube channel. So if you'd like to review some of the responses from the Q&A, that will be up there within 1 to 2 business days for you to review. So thanks again, Jeff, Julian, and everyone who's joined us today. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Bye, everyone.